Welcome to this, our Flower Communion service on seeking climate justice. If you are here in person or if you are online, I bid you welcome. We are, as always, recording the service, but the only people recording will be the person speaking, me. As ever, I will start by saying aloud the values that unite our community, Newcastle-on-Tyne Unitarians. As free thinkers, we do not have a statement of what we all believe, because what we have is a statement of the values we hold in common as we journey together. We welcome all who seek the meaning of life and who believe that human spirituality is wider than any one tradition and deeper than any one set of opinions. With a respect for our Christian origins, we seek to explore truths from all sources. Our fellowship gives us strength and encouragement in daily living. Let us light our chalice with these words, which I will read in one moment. In colours bright and essence sweet, like flowers we blossom when we meet. O source of life, our song we raise. This beauty fills our heart with praise. So welcome to our Flower Communion. Soon we will hear more about how this unique service was created by a man whose devotion to his fellow human beings never failed, even in the face of the darkest hours of the Second World War. But before we do that, we have flowers. Those of you who are here in person will have taken your flowers from the front near the door. Those of you who are on Zoom will see a slide showing some flower cards. I invite everyone to contemplate the flowers, or the flower cards, and choose one. Those of us who are here in person have chosen. Those on Zoom will see the ones on the cards in front of you, and please put whichever flower you would like to choose in the chat. Let us all take a moment also to think about what flowers mean to you. Are there flowers that you have grown yourselves, or ones that are particular favourites, or flowers that have special associations, perhaps a memory of someone you love? Perhaps you may like to think about what flowers represent yourselves. Has anyone on Zoom been able to choose their flower yet, Brian? Is it in the chat? Okay, well, we'll let the folks on Zoom have a think about that for a moment. And shortly we will have a shared reading which is on the back of the order of service. For those of you on Zoom, I apologise, I think I have not managed to get it in the chat, but please join with us in your hearts. So for those of us here in person, please have a look at the shared reading on the back of your order of service. Let us say together, in this our time together, we celebrate the beauty of the earth which is our home, manifest to us especially at this season in the loveliness of flowers. Celebrate also our coming together, make a community, each of us bringing ourself, symbolised in the flowers of our hearts, as we enter this, our chosen spiritual home. We come together also to remember and give thanks for human sacrifice, which has enriched our heritage and bought for us the freedoms we enjoy. Praise be to the eternal truth of our lives, for all that is beautiful, all that is shared, and all that is given and received in love. And we now need to stop the screen share so that people can see it. People on Zoom have chosen the iris and the cornflower, both beautiful flowers. Flower Communion is sometimes called the most distinctively Unitarian service, but what is it and how is it different to the communion services of other churches? It was recreated in the 1930s by the Reverend Dr. Norbert Čapek, who was the founder of the modern Unitarian movement in Czechoslovakia. So here is a little history of the Flower Communion. Norbert Čapek's mother was a devout Catholic His father was agnostic. He himself became an acolyte at age 10 in 1890 at St. Martin's Catholic Church. In the years that followed, he became disillusioned. At 18, apprenticed to his uncle, a successful tailor in Vienna, Norbert discovered the Baptists and became a minister. He founded almost a dozen churches, from Ukraine to Budapest. But slowly his faith became more and more liberal. He left Bohemia under government threat and accepted a call to serve a Baptist church in New York City until one day in 1919. That day he wrote in his diary, "I cannot be a Baptist anymore, even in compromise. The fire of new desires, new worlds is burning inside me." Norbert and his wife, Maya Čapek, joined a Unitarian church in New Jersey in 1921 because their children liked the religious education program. World War I ended, and with his home country now independent, he and Maya returned home to Czechoslovakia. His Unitarian church was the Prague Liberal Religious Fellowship. In just 20 years, his church had 3,200 members. The traditional Christian communion of bread and wine would not meet the needs of his congregation because his church, like ours, had people who believed many different things. Čapek thus turned to the beauty of the countryside, to the beauty of flowers. In 1923, he developed the flower ceremony. He asked his congregants to bring a flower to church from their gardens, the field, or the roadside. He invited each person to place their flower in a vase. There was the church community, no less unique for being united. Following the service, each person could take a flower from the vase, a different one to the one they had brought. Čapek was a visionary minister with a church ahead of its time, a bold church, a church thinking beyond its doors, beyond what it thought possible. It was a church that was willing to take risks, to make tough decisions, to bear disappointment and to build a new way, first by building a church, and that church could build up the world. That is our church, and that is Čapek's church. For this, the Gestapo arrested him in 1942. The Nazis accused him of listening to foreign broadcasts and sent him to the Dachau concentration camp. Even in starvation and torture, he held a flower ceremony with his fellow prisoners, finding whatever flowers they could among the weeds of the camp. They testified to a beauty larger than themselves and a love that would outlive them. The Nazis killed Norbert Čapek, but his spirit, courage, and commitment live on today. These qualities have passed now to us to make them real, and his wife Maya brought the flower ceremony to the Unitarian Church in Cambridge, Massachusetts, in the United States in 1940. In the 1960s, it crossed back over to the UK and has spread throughout Unitarian congregations across the world. It is usually always held in either spring or early summer when the flowers are out. So what we do when we hold flower communion is not a historical reenactment of something over and done, but an affirmation of our continuity with the generations of struggle for ever-widening liberty. This flower ceremony, lovely though it is not a diversion from the ugly reality of the world. It is a gentle fierceness which proclaims that in the midst of sinister days, there is always the light of beauty. We are here, not to recall something that happened, but to remember. To remember something that is happening, to remember, to put it back together again. And in that remembering, may we put ourselves back together again, each as a part of this body, of this community, out of many, one. Today we celebrate this ritual of solemnity and joy. As Čapek asked his people to bring a flower and celebrate beauty, so too shall we. And in a moment we shall have our next hymn. I will just assist with the screen sharing. The theme of today's service, apart from being the flower communion, is seeking climate justice. And that was actually inspired by what happened yesterday, which was the Newcastle Green Festival. You might have seen on the front of the order of service today a picture of myself and Brian, thoughtfully taken by my friend Stephen, toting our Unitarian flags and waving at our stall, which took place in Heaton, just to the east of the city centre. This week is called Great Big Green Week. It runs from about the 10th to the 18th of June. So a lot of people here in Newcastle gathered together to celebrate our Earth and talk about how we might campaign for climate justice. I thought it would be a good idea to have a little bit of a reading from one of our newest Unitarian books, Cherishing the Earth, Nourishing the Spirit. We do actually have a copy of this, which is free for anyone to borrow. So this book was written partly by Maria Curtis, who drew in contributions from a great many Unitarian authors. And this is part of her introduction, in which she talks a bit about why she and many others feel it's important for us as people of faith to campaign for climate justice, and also what climate justice actually means. So here is a little from Maria. What we share is a commitment, for some a covenant, to engage in loving, caring, respectful relationships with each of us, within our immediate communities and within the wider Earth community, which is seen as sacred. Central to this spiritual perspective is a sense of gratitude for the whole of creation, informed by humility, as we acknowledge our interconnectedness and interdependence with all living things on Earth. We feel the need to accept this gift with good grace. We should be full of joy when we perceive our glorious world. And we are conscious beings, able to apprehend beauty and share intimacy with others. We are indeed blessed. We have much to celebrate, while still acknowledging our unique responsibility as thinking beings, the only species in a position to choose between cherishing or destroying our rich and precious biosphere. But we, especially those of us from the affluent countries, with our history of exploitative imperialism and racism, must acknowledge our culpability, our complicity in the current ecological crisis. We may not have done it deliberately, but our lifestyles have all contributed to this crisis. Acknowledging our human frailty, now is the time for us to own our shadow and consider how we can get back on an even keel before it's too late. How do we mobilise our better selves and influence those with power to act more responsibly? We have faith, perhaps against the evidence, that human beings are fundamentally decent creatures. We therefore need to understand ourselves better. Under what conditions do we become selfish and competitive, or cruel or aggressive? What is needed for empathy and compassion to be felt for all of humankind? What helps us to flourish? Who is our neighbour? Should we include the whole Earth community? We face a stark choice, compassion for the Earth or indifference. We must choose to cherish the Earth. And Maria speaks a little about the problem we face. We have a brief and rapidly closing window to secure a livable future. So said Hans Otto Portner, co-chair of a working group of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, in the panel's report on March 2022. Climate breakdown is accelerating rapidly, with many of the impacts proving to be more severe than originally predicted. Human activity affecting our climate is already causing dangerous and widespread disruption, threatening devastation to vast areas of the planet and making many places uninhabitable. Droughts, floods, heat waves and other extreme weather events are accelerating and wreaking increasing damage. Allowing global temperatures to increase by more than 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels will result in some irreversible impacts. These include the melting of ice caps and glaciers, and a cascading effect whereby wildfires, the die-off of trees, the drying out of peatlands, and the thawing of permafrost, which releases methane into the atmosphere, will amplify emissions further. Antonio Guterres, UN Secretary-General, described the report as an atlas of human suffering and a damning indictment of failed climate leadership. John Kerry, the US Special Envoy for the Climate, said that in view of the lives and livelihoods already lost, the question is not whether we can avoid the crisis, it is whether we can avoid the worst consequences. Although every inhabited area of the planet is affected, about half the global population live in areas which are highly vulnerable to climate change. Millions of people face food and water shortages. Mass die-offs of species, from trees to corals, are already underway. Coastal areas around the globe and small, low-lying islands face being inundated by the sea if temperatures rise much more than that 1.5 degrees C. And that is just climate change, one outcome of the way in which we have dishonoured the Earth. That intersects with, or is made worse by, the loss of biodiversity, the different species across the Earth as a result of human activity. Since that report came out, we've seen devastating floods in Pakistan, with a third of an entire country beneath the water. Homes and livelihoods have been washed away, family members, livestock, and the people's beloved friends and neighbours have been lost. We had record-breaking temperatures in the UK last summer, and it was certainly quite warm yesterday, but last summer it rose above nearly 40, in some places over 40 degrees, which is extremely hot for this country. Drought in Africa is causing widespread famine. Millions of people are at risk of starvation and death. So Maria concludes, concerted action is needed now to avoid the worst impacts, but we humans are not at the moment working together. We live in one world, as we just sang, but there are huge disparities of wealth and opportunity within and between different regions. Half of the world's net wealth belongs to the richest 1% of all human beings. This cannot be right. That's my comment, not Maria's. Our governments cannot, or it seems will not, agree on measures to alleviate disaster, dominated as they are by parochial short-term thinking. And it is not just governments. There are the vested interests of multinational corporations too, driven by the profit motive. To quote the Green MP, Caroline Lucas, we need a bold reimagining of our economy and all of the power structures that sustain the status quo. It is not working. At the COP27 conference held in November last year in Egypt, an occasion on which people in Newcastle also gathered together, many of them who were out yesterday were also out there in November, including us, who marched from the Haymarket in Newcastle up to St Thomas's Church. That caused a march for justice. And at the COP27 climate conference held in that year, in November last year, the focus was on justice. And I think what we have just heard outlines why justice needs to be such an important part of our work to tackle climate change and prevent it getting worse. The Earth's resources are already not fairly shared out. We all know this. This is not new either. Jesus himself knew it, so did many of the spiritual leaders who came before him. But the impacts of climate change now are added to that injustice. As we've heard, people in Pakistan have suffered terribly. People in the Horn of Africa have also suffered. It is disproportionately the world's poor, people living in countries which are not as rich as ours, and not as rich as those countries which have often caused climate change, who are going to suffer the worst effects. This cannot be right. It must be something that we work to tackle. And it also affects us here in the UK, which I'll speak about later. Maria concludes, we must face this together or perish. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. That observation is often attributed to Martin Luther King Jr., but whilst he certainly did use it, it actually, and I'm going to do the Unitarian thing of claiming any vaguely famous person or thing as Unitarian, it actually first appeared in an 1853 sermon by the Unitarian minister Theodore Parker as a statement of faith based on his experience of working for the abolition of slavery. It's understandable that Luther King Jr. would have harked back to that in his own work to promote racial equality and racial justice. But Maria comments, there is nothing inevitable or predetermined about the course of justice. There is no guarantee that moral progress will prevail. It depends on our own vigilance. As Dr. King also expressed it, evil may so shape events so that Caesar will occupy a palace and Christ the cross. We have to make the world a more just place. The arc will not bend towards justice on its own. Those are some hard-hitting words from Maria. And I did wonder, Flower Communion is traditionally a very happy service, and I believe it is happy. But we also know, as we heard in our earlier reading, that it had its roots in World War II. What happened to Norbert Čapek and his fellows was not just. It was cruel and it was unfair. But as we saw, what he did outlived himself, and his commitment to justice and to compassion and to bringing people together is an example to all of us. So I think we must hold those two things in balance. The challenges we face and our own will and determination to see justice. So on that note, let us now take a moment for some meditation. Let us return to our flowers. You may wish to close your eyes, you may wish to picture your flower. If you are on Zoom, let me show the flowers again once more to the camera. Fine, would you hold those briefly in front of the camera so that they can be seen? So let us take a moment to contemplate. Take a moment now to contemplate this flower. Notice how if you have one flower, it has a centre, a focal point from which everything radiates. If you have, like me, a flower with many different little heads, you'll notice that this is true of all of them. Each has a centre, a focal point. Ask yourself, where does your own centre lie? Flowers stretch up towards the life-giving sun. Ask yourself, towards what lofty aim does your soul aspire? Flowers have roots, they hug the earth. Ask yourself, where do you draw your strength and nourishment? As we continue with our lives, may we always grow in beauty, in light, in cheer and joy, and share our gifts as freely as these pleasant flowers bloom. Soon we will bring our flowers to the altar. And for this, we're going to use the table over here with the candles on. At this point, we place our flowers together as a collective offering of our united worship, knowing that our worship consists of giving and receiving. We will now have a prayer, followed by a few moments of silence. And after that, I would like us to sing a hymn which is different to the one in the order of service. It will be hymn, let me just double check the number, in the Purple Book, number 216, which is Wide Green World. So we will sing that shortly, but first we will have a prayer, and then we will have a period of silent reflection and some music. So here is our prayer. Infinite Spirit of life, we ask your blessing on these flowers, your messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us, amid diversities of knowledge and gifts, to be one in desire and affection and devotion to your holy will. May they also remind us of the value of comradeship, of doing and sharing and acting alike. May we cherish friendship as one of your most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationship, but may we realise that whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do your work in this world. May it be so. Amen. This will not be a long address, I'm sure you'll all be happy to know. Whenever I write addresses, this has nothing to do with climate change, it just makes me laugh. I'm always reminded of the Muppets from the Muppet Show, Statler and Waldorf, the old men who sit and comment, and their appearance in A Christmas Carol, commenting on Fozzie Bear's speech. That was the speech. It was terrible. It was horrible. It was short. I loved it. Sometimes words are indeed needed, but I think I'll simply share, instead of a great argument, some reflections on yesterday. All things are connected, as we've heard, and I think, as we heard in Maria's piece earlier, climate justice is caused by the roots of other injustice. We saw many stalls, some from people providing medical care in war-torn areas, ourselves, people growing gardens in Shield Field, people campaigning for Palestinian and Cuban solidarity, and of course Extinction Rebellion. We also saw over the road The Star and Shadow, Newcastle's anarchist collective cinema, proving that anarchy can in fact create things. They may indeed have nothing above them, to use the actual meaning of anarchy, an-arch, nothing above, but they certainly seem to get everything organised, opened, cleaned, and many cups of coffee and vegan flapjack served, which were greatly appreciated. Whilst there, I had an argument. As a true Unitarian, I actually prefer it when people argue with me, especially when people standing there staring at you, with someone who firmly believed that religion was the source of all oppression. I believe I defended my corner as best I could. I was not going to completely change his mind. I don't know what people have in their paths that causes them to believe what they do. But I believe we must bear in mind his point. Sometimes religion itself has been that tool of oppression. And I think many of the things in this book, which I do recommend people read if this is something of interest to you, cause us to challenge our own perceptions and the ways in which we sometimes participate in systems of injustice without meaning to or intending it. We must all work together. And that is partly why, in addition to the fact it's Great Big Green Week, I wanted to bring climate justice into the Flower Communion. Because we start with Flower Communion by considering ourselves when we choose our flower or flower card. We think about what makes us unique. Then we place our flowers together, symbolising our community. We might also at this moment want to take a few seconds to think about those flowers. Those are fair trade flowers, grown by people paid a fair wage for their hard work. They were grown in other countries far from here. And perhaps that is something to think about for next time. I would have liked to bring some UK grown flowers. Unfortunately, the rose in my garden is failing to cooperate. So for now, we have the finest offerings of the co-op. Perhaps next time we will manage to do that. But let us perhaps think also of the connectedness of our world, the people far away who grew those, and many people involved in transporting them here. That makes us think both of the hard work and our links to people overseas, and perhaps how our world is currently structured and how it might need to change. Soon, we might think the same of those cards. What of the people who grew the trees, that made the paper, that was made into the cards, and the people who transported them here? We cannot live without this interconnectedness, and we must work to build that community in which things are more fairly shared out, both the joys of this earth and the unfairnesses and the consequences. Some are felt more by some than others, and we must always work together, as indeed everybody did at the Green Festival yesterday, to create joy, purpose and meaning. I believe we can do it. I especially was heartened by the people who said that one of the things that brought them to our stall was our rainbow heart saying that we are proud to be an inclusive church where all are welcome. I believe that's what's needed. I believe it's what as Unitarians we can offer. So just before we choose our flowers once more, I call upon us all just to think of a moment in the sun. For myself and Brian and many others, it was yesterday in Heaton, but we will all have had one, where we felt a connection to other people. The sheer joy our earth with its water, its sunshine, its green grass, and its fellow human beings and animals and plants can bring to us. Let us hold on to that joy and try and share it as widely as we may. That is what we are called on to do, and together I believe we can do it. So now we will conclude our flower communion by each going there and choosing a flower for those of us who are present here. And if you are on Zoom, I guess you will be exchanging flower cards because there are 2 people on Zoom. I will post those cards to you. So think of the iris and the cornflower. And for those of us, let us walk and choose a flower, reverently, quietly, and with a sense of how important it is for each of us to address our world and each other with gentleness, justice, and love. Let us choose our flowers. Final few words of prayer before we extinguish our chalice. Here we are in a place we feel safe, a place we know and where we are known, in a loving community. With all the problems and challenging situations in our lives, nevertheless, we have the safe, still point of this community, on this Sunday in this place. Let us give thanks for our own stability in this country. Let us pray for all of our fellow human beings whose lives are not so blessed. Let us open our hearts so that we can empathise with our fellows. Let us remember and hold in our hearts those who have had to leave their communities and travel to foreign lands. Let us remember all those things we have in common with them and with people everywhere. Our shared hopes and aspirations for home, for work, for a bright future for children.